how do you deal with your own energy when you have a change in routine? Have you ever thought about that? Maybe you say, well, you know what? If I go on a day longer, sleep a little bit later, that's no issue. But what if it includes maybe not having food or not the food that you want to? It includes driving for long hours, so not just 30 minutes, but more like 2.5 hours. And you do have a limitation when it comes to energy. Well, in my case, you might know that I'm dealing with something called EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So Ehlers was a doctor, Danlos was a doctor, and they talked about hypermobility syndrome, but then also some other things which are related to that syndrome. Anyway, for me, it means that I need to be aware of the amount of energy I have, and especially about recharging my energy. If I use more energy one day, then it needs to be replenished. And if I do not sleep enough, then it will take its toll on me. So in this case, this week was a weird week. Let's start with that part. So the first day of the week, I told you already, if you've watched last week's live, we had a free day because it was the king's birthday. I still had to do some other stuff, which I did. I had to finish my administration for last quarter. And I also had to give it to the people. So I said on Friday before King's Day, do you mind if I get it there on Tuesday? Yeah, that's okay, but do it in the morning. And then it was Tuesday morning, and I was like, but I have PT, which is in the same area. Can I stay awake? Well, basically, I did drive back, and no, I didn't manage to stay awake. So I called the PT. I said, sorry, I cannot do it this time around. I'll see you again next week. So I explained what was going on, and they understood. Now, the next day, that was a totally different story because my friends had come over from the US to be touring here in Europe. And on Wednesday, they actually were over here in the Netherlands. But of course, they weren't close by. And with all the road constructions going on, and there were also a lot of traffic jams. It was kind of hard to get to the place. So officially, it's only like maybe 1 hour and 15 minutes driving. It took me almost 2.5 hours. And I was already like, okay, well, it sort of is around the corner, sort of. So let's go do it. Now I got there. I had a great time with the guys. It's always nice to meet up with friends again. They needed some stuff. So I said, well, if I come back tomorrow, I'll make sure I have the stuff for you. And I took pictures and I recorded some video. Did I record some video? I think I only took pictures. I'm not sure. And so, yeah, basically I had a good time. So the next day I returned and I already noticed that I had been walking a lot. So I used my braces, but still going around in venues where there's low light, lots of little steps. It was like, okay, let's see what I can get done. So this time I did bring my camera, not my camera but also my video camera. And I was like, okay, let's see how we can do this best. So I asked the sound guy from the venue, can you help me out with XLR cables? He could. And well, it was kind of fun actually to be walking around using my camera and at the same time also talking to the other people from the venue. Absolutely had a good time. But like I said, I could feel that I was low on energy. So that day, that second day, I already said, okay, I'm going to come in a little bit later because I need my sleep. Now, I also had learned that you cannot expect too much when it comes to food, even when they are your friends, because they only think about that you're going to drop by the moment that you're there. So before getting there, they won't include any food for us friends when we come over, which is okay as long as I have the time and the opportunity to actually get food. So the second day, I was like, okay, I'll go drive by the Starbucks, get myself some food, and that worked out. And then the surprise, are you coming to Germany with us? And I was like, oh, hang on, we didn't discuss coming to Germany. But I do get it because in the past I would go to Germany. I've even gone as far as Paris. But usually I would stay at a hotel. And back then I didn't have a cat to take care of. And well, since he's almost 2 years old, he's still very young. And well, I didn't get this cat in order to leave him alone. And depending on which day it is, I can ask others to feed him and to play with him. But that was not an option that Friday. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, I want to play drums, which I can only do one day in a week, unfortunately. And I was like, I want to sleep in. And it's like over 3 hours driving just to get to Germany. Yeah, because we want you to take some boxes home with you because we basically have too much merch on this tour. Now, like I said, I help out whenever I can, and this is no exception. And yes, I did have boxes here, which even survived COVID. And so, yes, I am eager to please, but I'm not eager to do it at the expense of my own health limits. So on one end, because I've been doing so since 2014, they had seen me walking normally, then walking with crutches, then later with the first set of braces, and now with this set of braces. So on the surface, it looks like I'm improving, which is true. I can walk a lot easier compared to years ago. But at the same time, I am getting older, and there's a lot involved with the whole EDS thing. It's not just about mobility, it's also about allergies and, well, actually it's about neurological reactions to food and mast cells. And since that's off on my end, I require more time to get back to, well, being fully functional. And there are a couple of things that that are tells, like my heart pounding through my entire body. That means I need to sleep on. It basically means it's a release of adrenaline because I do have a tendency to run high on adrenaline, which started as, well, I became aware of it when I started to work, but probably I've been doing so for years on end. I just didn't know. Nowadays, I know that I don't like running on adrenaline all the time. And the main reason is I get very clumsy when I do. So I'm like, okay, breathe through it and, just calm down, do what needs to be done, set my boundaries, share with people. I need to release rush and embrace my rhythm. So literally, it's one of my mantras: release rush, embrace rhythm. And nowadays, I also say enjoy the present. So I was like, am I going to enjoy this? Going there, knowing that this is going to cost me. So here's my friend. My friend only lives like an hour and 15 minutes, say 90 minutes from Germany, from that location. But for me, it's 2 hours more. So I was like, So she said, oh, you can stay over at my place. She's going to stay over. Lady Lexi stays with me. And I was looking at her. I don't have the stuff with me for a sleepover. And of course, I've got a cat here. So I was like, that's not going to work out. Then she said, well, you know what? I'll take the boxes. And then the idea was that I would pick them up at her place and bring them to me, which is the same 2+ hours driving. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I like where this is going. So upon saying goodbye, I said, I don't know if I'll see you tomorrow. And was like, yeah, you're going to see us tomorrow. And I was like, well, I don't know. And because I had done so in the past, there were these expectations that I actually would. But like I said, a lot of things have changed ever since. And a lot has to do with my mobility. And because my mobility is changing every day, so is my energy. And in order to have a day which is as least painful as can be, it's just best to really recharge. Let's put it that way. So I said to my friend that next day, I don't think I'm going to come. She called me. And I said, if you want me to be there at 5, I need to get up now. I'm not going to get up now. I don't feel like it. So we called a little bit later. And I said, just go without me. And then she said, well, how about if you come over now? And by that time, I did have enough sleep. I had not played drums, which was a bit annoying, but she said something that I totally could relate to. We are travel buddies. We like to hang out on the road together. So when she said so, I was like, okay, I'll get in the car. I'll drive to your house. You're going to drive on to Germany. You're going to drive back, and then I'm going to stack the boxes in my car, and I'll drive back to my place. And so we did. What didn't happen straight away was I wasn't able to get food. So I dropped by the Starbucks. There was like only one sandwich left, and the oven was turned off, and I was like, but I'm hungry. I need food. Now, fortunately, I did have something left from the previous day, but I counted on the possibility to actually go to a grocery store when I was at my friend. But my friend wanted to leave straight away. And then she realized that I was hungry. And I told her, listen, I've got a little something now, but I do get hungry, and I'm not nice when I get hungry. So she was listening to her music. I was still adjusting to driving in a car with someone, not being behind the wheel. And it was like, it was literally like adjusting. She noticed. I said, yeah, I still need food. And then at some point she said, you know what? I'm going to pull over. You go over there. You get your food at the gas station. And the moment I started eating, everything changed. I'm not sure what it was, if it was just conversation, but absolutely it was the fuel too. And my mood suddenly lifted totally. And I can only say that both going there and also on the way back, we had a lot of fun. We sang along with the music. We talked about so many things, and it was absolutely worthwhile. When I got there, again, no food, and it was a long drive just to get there. So by that time, I was like, well, I want something at some point. So the first thing I did when getting there was making sure I could get the cables for the sound, put them in the back of the video camera, and then record. Well, of course, record the show, but I also had my other camera with me and was like, well, maybe I'll record some video on that camera too. So I took pictures with my Sony camera on stage, literally on stage and off stage. And at some point, I saw this location where I was like, oh, this is cool if I stack my camera right here. So I got my tripod as the person over there who was in charge of the lights. Can I? Yeah, sure. So I put it there, put the camera on top, and that meant I didn't have a camera to take pictures anymore, but I did have my phone. And actually, the iPhone is quite good. So I was like, well, I've taken enough pictures on stage and before the stage. It's the third day in a row, after all. So let's see what happens when I use my photo, well, my phone camera, my camera from the phone. Why? Because when I use the Sony camera, because it's got this special lens, which is like really close up, then everything in the background fades. And I also wanted to have some people from the crowd on that same shot, because then you could see how enthusiastic they were. So I was like, well, let's experiment a little bit. I also brought my MacBook with me so we could look at pictures. And all combined, it was kind of nice. And it was one of the reasons I wanted to go, because I was like, okay, it's nice to use the camera and to really take those pictures, because I basically only have the opportunity to take really not really decent pictures, but this camera is bought for low light. And especially in venues when things are moving. And well, I do have multiple friends who go on tour, but it's not like I'm a regular photographer at some venue. I probably could be. But I did meet some awesome ladies who also take pictures. And they actually asked me, well, how about if you were to create a specific channel or an Instagram account just for your pictures? And I was like, well, maybe that's something that I should be doing. So all combined, there were a number of reasons to go there to Germany, even though I wasn't sure at first. And one of the reasons was also not only to have fun with my friend, my road buddy, but also because, well, whenever I see the pictures, and that's the effect music has on me, it's like I'm in some sort of relaxed state of mind. I get a different look on my face. It's like I'm where I'm supposed to be. When we got back and we were driving back, we were talking about things. But before we went back, I was hungry. So I asked the manager, can you get us something from wherever you're ordering? I'll pay you money. And he said, well, I can't do that because the orders have already been placed. But then he showed up and he had something for me and my friend, which was kind of nice. So me being hungry, I knew that the things in there weren't necessarily good for me, but I gave it a try after all. And 3 bites in, I'm like, okay, this is not going the way it should. So I stopped eating. My friend looked at me, are you okay? And I was like, So, and she literally could hear the air trying to squeak by the blockage. Now, it's not like my throat is swelling up, but what does happen is that the muscles actually contract. And that makes it hard to swallow. So I can still talk, I can still breathe. I just can't swallow anymore. So she did a few things that helped me. I took my medication, and since it did continue on, I was like, I need to eat some food. And that might seem like, hang on, you said your esophagus is closed up and you still want to eat. But what actually happens is that the muscles start to relax again. So the food causes a reaction. My mast cells react to it. That causes the cramping. And then when the medication takes care of the mast cells, then the next thing is that the cramping needs to diminish, which basically means things need to relax. So my friend knew this place next door, and they had the most delicious pizza. I was in luck that they still made pizza for me. It was freshly made, thin crust. And well, it's been a long while since I have been like savoring every bite, especially of a pizza. So that was nice. So at some point I felt okay again. We had a great conversation with the people out there. So my friends were already on the tour bus, and we got to meet some new friends. So we were talking about music, and then I said, well, my friend, she sings too. So basically we were building connection, and well, the both of us, and I guess the people at the table too, all of us had a good time. And when we drove back, we talked about all the things that had happened. And that was good. I think it's really, I mean, we are good friends, but with every road trip, something changes. We get a better understanding of one another, especially since she was driving this time around and I wasn't. And she felt particularly good about that part because normally I'm someone who wants to arrange it all. Well, this time I was like, oh, it's way too long of a drive. I need to save my energy. You know what? You just drive. And so I came back early morning the next day. I was tired and I was like, okay, where's my relaxer? I need to sleep. So that's what I did. After a number of hours, it was already Saturday, another friend of mine called me and said, do you want to have a bite to eat? Now, we always go to this fish restaurant, and it's delicious food. I cannot say anything else. So I was like, well, yeah. By that time, my body battery had charged. But I also knew that I had been walking a lot in the last couple of days, even though I was wearing braces. So I was like, okay, let's see how it turns out. So I didn't wear my braces from the car to the restaurant. It wasn't that far. And no stairs at the restaurant. I was like, okay. We had a bite to eat. Lovely view across the harbor. I always love going there. And at some point, we discussed what are we going to do. And she said, well, I would like to go for a walk. And normally, I would like to do so too. But the moment that I started walking, I was like, no, this is not going to work out. I got this slight headache, and everything was telling me that my body was basically shutting down. I was like, okay, this is not going to work out. I said, I don't mind driving you to the beach, but you have to walk by yourself. I need to sleep. And that's when we decided to drop her back off at her place and I would go on to mine. So that's when I basically fell asleep in my relaxed chair, and it took me a number of hours before I woke up. And when I woke up, I fell asleep just as easily. So it was, yeah, I could tell that this was max capacity, and that's basically why I have been considering not going to Germany. Now, if you've listened to my story, a lot of things have been said, and there are some things that I want you to think about as well. So let's start with the changing routine. So I don't know if you have steady, fixed routine related to sleep, maybe working out, to socializing with others. And what do you do if something special comes up? What do you do in order to maintain your own energy and stick to what you deem important? So what do you prioritize? And having said so, this is about boundaries and knowing your own boundaries. So what is it that you want to do and what you do not want to do? The next thing, of course, has to do with energy. It's literally about fueling energy by means of sleep, by means of relaxation, by means of having a great time. Because let's face it, hanging out with friends can actually fuel your battery as well. And especially since I didn't see these people on a regular basis, I was like, oh, that's nice. And since my friend, my tour buddy, is living like 2 hours away from me, I don't see her that often either. So it was kind of nice to actually go there. So I was like, okay, let's do it. But when I realized that my food schedule was off, so before I went there the first day, I made sure that I stopped by the grocery store to get some protein drinks and some other stuff. I made sure this was filled at all times with water. So I did take care of myself. And I, combined, it all felt good. So the second day, I already noticed that I had done a lot the first day. So when it comes to boundaries and recognizing my own boundaries, including what am I going to do, because this has been taking its toll on my energy level and hence on also, well, since I've got health issues, I need time to restore the muscle functions, but also restore the energy. And I was like, okay, so second day we can do, but I still need to make sure that I have the option to get food and, well, basically be able to fuel while I'm there. So I did. The third day, of course, was a little bit different, but it's something to think about. So what's your energy like? What do you need in order to recharge? Now, one of the things that I have been thinking about for a long time was whether I would go to Germany or not. So here was the ask if I would take some boxes with me And there was the assumption that I would come because I always did so in the past. But what they didn't know is that even though I do seem to walk better on the surface, I also know that it's because I give myself the time to recharge that things are balanced. So if you look at yourself and what it is that you need, what are your boundaries? What do you use when it comes to energy? And how do you recharge? And linked to that, what's the payoff for you if you do decide to go? Now, for people who are dealing with these kind of diseases, and it could be a different disease as well, a lot of them are used to basically ignoring those boundaries. Why? Because first of all, most people don't see it. Second of all, most people don't take it into consideration. And third of all, because that doesn't happen, we are not taken seriously. And basically, from an early age on, we get the message, just go do it. Don't be a baby and just push through, which is, of course, the worst thing that you can do when dealing with either mental and or physical issues. But again, there can be a payoff. And for me, the payoff was on multiple levels, especially when my friend said, but I would like to do a road trip with you again. And I was like, yeah, that's fun. I know we always have fun. And I also remember the talks I had with other photographers. The first day I did something for a 20-year-old. It was kind of cool. He had this set list. And I was like, oh, you know, I can just go backstage and ask them to sign it. I mean, I have access to the backstage. They're my friends, so I can just go in there and say, okay. So I said, hey, hang on, give me the set list for a moment. So I got him the autographs, which was kind of cool. And I actually made a post about it. I said, I wasn't seen. I saw him and he lit up. And that's basically what happened. I guess it takes one to know one. And talking to the people at the venue, lots of us were actually bullied when we were younger, including this guy. And all of us, well, I guess that's part of being a metalhead. Most of us, we are a little different compared to most people out there. And yeah, we have certain, what shall we say? People don't always understand us, but we do understand one another. So that day already was a day that not only lit him up, but it actually lit me up too. So if you decide to change your schedule, why are you going to do it? How can you protect your boundaries? What do you do in order to recharge? And again, what's the payoff? Now, last but not least, there is the need for support. So, luckily for me, my friends always have supported me when I needed support going up and down the stairs. There is always support from the venue, but you do have to ask, and sometimes you have to be very patient and ask on. But I also needed support from my friend, the one who was driving, because if she hadn't been driving to Germany, I probably wouldn't have gone. It was just too much. But since she did, it did work. And the bottom line is it's all about clear communication. So when they asked me, are you coming tomorrow to come to Germany? I was already like, well, I don't know. And then she said, yeah, I will come. And I was like, yeah, oh, good on you. But, I only had 2 days hanging out with my friends. I took pictures, I recorded videos. So, it's good for me the way it is. But of course, there was the ask. And, well, basically, she said, well, I'll do it. And then I realized, yeah, that's nice. Then it's going to your place, and then it has to come to my place too, because you already have merch from other bands at your place. And, well, it needs to be stashed somewhere. And that also involves sorting things out and going up and downstairs. So I could understand that she was like, yeah, that's your job. You take this. And but the mere fact that we talked about it, and hence why I said I communicated with her why I didn't want to go, then why I said, okay, let's go. And primarily it had to do because of her ask. And then it was like, yeah, and if the boxes need to go there anyway, and I need to drive 2 hours just to get to her anyway, I might as well go to Germany with her. And then when I did, it, like I said, was fun. I had a really, really good time. But these are things that when you do something for someone else, well, actually, when I was talking to Brendan AI, so that's the AI from Brendan Burchard, on the way back, I talk a lot with the AI. I, at some point, concluded, like, okay, if I do this, I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me. And it sounds sort of like an ego thing, but it was like, okay, I need to respect my boundaries. But if I do feel good about it and it gives me the chance to do something, taking pictures with the camera, and I mean, it's expensive equipment. And if I'm there, why not use the equipment? Or better said, why not use the equipment when they are here? So those things combined led me to say, okay, if I'm going there, it's not because they need me to take boxes. It's not because they expect me to be there, but it's because of the road trip, which was later added. And it's because, well, it's actually nice to talk to other people who take pictures too, and to be able to really do things that I consider fun. And of course, it's nice to hang out with my friends too, let's be honest. Otherwise, I wouldn't come over in the first place. All combined, I was like, okay, so what am I going to talk about today? So before I decided to go live, at first, of course, on Friday, there was no option because I was late as it was. And I only got back early Saturday morning. Well, like I said, Saturday, I still had to set some boundaries or protect my own energy. Let's put it that way. And when I arrived back, of course, I still needed to catch up on the lack of sleep I had from the previous days, especially refueling from all the energy and using muscles I normally don't use. So today was the day that I was like, okay, I promised myself I would do this on a weekly basis. And, well, we basically train the brain on what we do or not do. Well, I know what it's like to do it for a year, going live every day, every week on the same day. I know what it's like to not do it. And I also know what it's like to say, okay, well, maybe not on Friday, but I'll do it at least on the weekends. So here I am. And here is my Sunday night live instead of my Friday night live. So I might actually change the title at some point. Now, this is not so much about being there at a certain time. It's more about people know that it's there, that they can check my channel if they want to. And I absolutely believe that if someone needs to hear this story, at some point they will see it, they will find it, and that's my reason for getting out there. So I was going back and forth a little bit about something else that really captured my mind, which has to do with AI, and of course this. And I was full, I still am full, as in talking about going with my friends. I mean, it was like a minification, and it is literally like, okay, what did I do this week? Okay, this week was literally dedicated to hanging out with my friends. It's literally dedicated to taking pictures, recording audio, and also driving a lot. And so on one hand, it's nice because it breaks the rhythm. It's about doing something new, and that fuels us too. Let's face it, novelty is a good thing for the brain. But I also knew, like, okay, there's only so much I can take. So hence why I've been talking about protecting boundaries. And I hope you already wrote something down about what could be a minification for you. Well, I realize I didn't ask that before, but what could be a minification for you? Is that going abroad? Maybe with your family? Is it hanging out with friends? Could it be something you do for one day or a couple of days, or does it require a number of weeks? And while I was in luck, because it was actually also good weather, and especially yesterday when I went to the harbor with my friend, it was kind of nice to sit outside, eat good food, really fuel myself, enjoy the view, and just enjoy the sunlight. It was really, really, really good weather. And, I had seen it improving from the first day that I sat outside to get a bite to eat, all the way up till yesterday, basically. So if you hear all of these things, what would you say that you do? Are you aware of your boundaries? Are you aware of your energy? Do you occasionally run out? Are you people pleaser, doing things for other people, overstepping your own boundaries? How do you, what is your modus operandi when it comes to these things? I really want you to think about it, because this is not just about what people can expect from you or actually expect from you. It's also about what you expect from yourself. And like I said, I know a lot of people who are very good at not respecting their own boundaries and saying, I have today, I don't know if I have tomorrow, so I'm just going to do it today. But at some point, it does catch up with them. So what kind of person are you? Do you ignore what your body tells you? So I have a number of clues by now, besides, of course, the pain and legs caving in, which I did feel in the last couple of days. It's also about the pounding of my heart through my body. It's the dozing off. I actually have those moments during these lives too. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but then at some point my eyes start to roll backwards at some point. And it does happen occasionally that I'm talking to you. I know what I'm talking about, but at the same time, I'm also getting into some sort of sleep state. And then weird things happen, because when I get in some sort of sleep state, then my mind is busy on a different level. And I know that if at that moment I talk on, I'm going to talk on about what's going on in that dream state instead of what I'm telling you. So I'm like, okay, I don't like that when that happens. But if it does happen again, I'll probably address it so you know that things are going on and I'm here to get my message out there. But depending on the severity, I will adjust things. So it might be I shorten the live. It might also be that I decide not to do the live at a certain day, and that's why I've given myself the option to do it at a different day as well. As long as it's in the weekends or on the weekends, because it's about what do I teach myself? What do I teach my brain? What do I teach my subconscious? If you know that you are not that good at setting boundaries, then maybe it's time to really start thinking about how can you recognize your boundaries. So I already talked to you about the feeling my heart pounding through my entire body. I talked to you about that sleep state where my eyes basically turn backwards. I talked to you about that headache and that need to sleep. And well, I don't want to drive being sleepy. So those are 4 things. And the 5th thing I can recognize is my watch has a body battery on there. It's a Garmin watch. And if it is really low and it doesn't recharge enough, and these days it actually has gone down to 7 and the lowest, which is 5%. So then it really needs to recharge to a certain limit in order to be able to go through the day. So what are your metrics? How do you recognize when enough is enough? And what are you willing to do for others, but more importantly for yourself? And how do you communicate that with clarity? And apart from communicating with clarity, what do you do when it comes to support? Because it's one of the things that I always say, make sure that you get support. So voice yourself, speak up about what it is that you need or what it is that you're willing to do. And there's no shame in explaining why. And I know a lot of people, they are not willing to talk about why, especially when we're talking about managers and their teams. They're like, well, I don't have to tell them why. But if you want people to work with you, it might actually make a difference if there is some open and honest communication involved. So leave a comment about what it is that you do and what you need. And if you are someone who says, well, I need to learn to set some boundaries and rewrite my inner story, remember, there is the Rewrite Your Inner Story Challenge. I'll make sure to put a link in the description, not a description and link. I honestly say I do forget it at times. So if you want that link, let me know. But also really think about it. Talk to others about it. And, leave a comment how it's been working out for you. I'll talk to you again next week. Be safe and do things one step at a time.